should we do
He
in order
has
to stop that?
he has offered everything. He's offered everything. You're right. You know why? Because he doesn't want to around with the United States. Thank you, everybody.
Welcome to another episode of Just Informed Talk. I'm your host, Craig James, and we're going to be getting into some theories that have been going around that I think tie together the actions of President Donald Trump against Venezuela and Nicolas Maduro and the regime cartel that he operates, and the CIA, the deep state here in America, and Trump's ongoing war against them. It's an interesting set of theories that kind of tie it all together, and I want to explain these to you as best as I can. But we start with understanding where we're at with this conflict. President Trump has been launching these attacks in the Caribbean Sea against narco-trafficking terrorists who work for a cartel that's connected to Maduro and his regime. This is a cartel that presumably has been operating on behalf of not just Maduro and his regime, but more overly at the behest of U.S. intelligence agencies. As we know, the U.S. intelligence agencies, particularly the CIA, has had a hand in operating these cartels for a very long time. This is how they were funding their black operations. This is going back to Barry Seal, going back to Mena, Arkansas, going back to the crack epidemic in Los Angeles, where all that money was flowing in from and what it was going toward, right? In one case, you had, Iran-Contra, where the drug money was being used to buy weapons to send to the Middle East, right? Is that the general gist of it? But we start with President Trump having these negotiations, now issuing an ultimatum. He shut down the airspace surrounding Venezuela in a move that many people are saying is the precursor to a much larger war that is coming. But we'll start there. Here's the story. Trump issues an ultimatum to the president of Venezuela. According to the Miami Herald, the warning was delivered during a phone call between Washington and Caracas. The offer guaranteed safe passage for Maduro, his wife, and his son on the condition that Maduro immediately resign. But the negotiations quickly collapsed. U.S. officials told the Miami Herald that Maduro's team made two demands that Washington rejected: global amnesty for crimes allegedly committed by Maduro and his associates, interesting, and continued control over the country's armed forces. Well, no kidding. Trump's not going to agree to that. That's ridiculous. Pardon me and give me amnesty for all my crimes I've committed and leave me in control. And then we can negotiate. It's like, no. But what this ties back to, and I have this incredible article that ties a lot of this together by James Howard Kunstler, is a CIA color revolution against the nation it's supposedly serving. Now, this is a very, very true story. And there was a quote that's mentioned in the beginning of this article. It says, "This isn't just about Maduro. This is the final nail in the coffin for the CIA black budget narco pipeline that's been running since the late 80s. And I want you to fully grasp the gravity of that statement in and of itself, right? That President Trump, if he is in fact trying to take on this deep state, if he is in fact trying to quote unquote drain the swamp, if he is in fact attempting to do the things that we believe he is trying to do, right? It would entail a massive operation that would go far beyond our own borders, because we know what they do is they offshore these operations that they run against us so that they can obfuscate any oversight and any legal culpability within the framework of the U.S. legal system in which they are trying to affect change, in many cases illegally, illicitly, right? And this article by James Howard Kunstler, I think, summarizes it perfectly. And I'll read a few parts of it. It starts off talking about the CIA director, John Ratcliffe, and what he's doing over in Langley. And they're basically asking the question in the beginning of this article, is he just sitting around, playing tiddlywinks, or is he actually working toward an end that many people can't see? The backstage of the CIA, the stuff we don't see, the behind closed door stuff. Is he really trying to clean house? And if he is, obviously this all wouldn't be happening publicly, but there would be elements of it that would be impossible to cover up. Ergo, what we're seeing with Venezuela, the targeting of these cartels. And I want to read some excerpts from this. So let's start here. Again, this is James Howard Kunstler over on Zero Hedge here on the CIA's color revolution against the nation it's supposed to be serving. And I'm going to pick up here in the article. It says, the CIA, you understand, is the beating heart of the deep state, aka the blob. The Democrat Party and the Never Trump rhinos are its errand boys. And that is why a 10-year-long coup has been running to smash Trump and Trumpism. Joe Biden was a piece of furniture thrown out of the truck that the CIA was driving to escape the scene of the crime. Joe Biden was under threat of blackmail the whole 4 years he haunted the Oval Office, having run his own petty racketeering operation to keep his miserable extended sick family in beach houses. So think about that. Joe Biden gets 81 million votes, right? Most votes of any person in the history of U.S. presidential elections. And we knew he was a walking corpse, but also a compromised walking corpse. We know about the things that Hunter Biden was getting into. We know about the stuff that was written about in Ashley Biden's diary about the alleged abuse that she said she suffered as a young child, inappropriate showers with her father that sexualized her at a young age. We know about the degenerate lifestyle of his son, who was most likely working as an asset of the intelligence agencies, mind you, not just using him as a way to leverage a racketeering operation to get his father and his uncle rich and powerful in Washington, D.C., but also as a sort of conduit for some of these intelligence operations to get their grip into these different nations, right? So that's where we begin this whole story, right? We begin there. The Democrat Party and the Never Trump rhinos working at the behest of the CIA. They're basically their lackeys because they're all compromised and blackmailed. Okay?
We erased nearly 1 year of gains in the past few weeks in the market.
Thursday was the worst day for stocks since March 2020.
Hi, this is Craig, and I have an important message for all of you out there listening. The globalists and the deep state banking cartel have launched their next operation, the Great Gold Reset. Are you prepared?
That is deliberate sabotage of the world economy to cause a collapse that the banksters can loan us more money, bring in a new cashless society, social credit score. That is the end game plan.
Look, the fact of the matter is this. When this thing hits, retirement accounts, savings, anything held in dollars could vanish instantly overnight. That's why you need to protect yourself with gold.
And so I'll just be totally blunt with you. I'm a gold buyer, and I've been vindicated big time.
That's why Genesis Gold Group is offering their free report, Surviving the Great Gold Reset, Your Financial Protection Plan. Visit justinformedgold.com immediately to claim your free survival report. That's justinformedgold.com, your last line of defense against the coming dollar collapse and financial reset we all know is coming. And remember, we have to prepare today for what's coming tomorrow. And if you don't recall how that works, I can give you an idea. Remember Madison Cawthorn, the former House representative? Remember what he said when he was talking about the things that go on in Washington, D.C.? He was talking about the degenerate behavior, being invited to orgies, all of this, depravity, and how it was targeted at individuals in Congress. Why? Because that's how they become compromised and controlled. Here's a clip of him talking to James O'Keefe about this very thing. Listen to this.
I think something to notice is that they'll normally use whatever they think is your weakness. So if you are not good with money, they'll try and rack up your debt.
Who's they?
Again, it's the ominous they. They is the people who wants to control the levers of money that are being poured around the world, around the country, because we're the greatest economic motivator in the entire planet. We can, with our soft power through Hollywood and through our music industry, through our ability to fund massive operations and government programs that enrich hundreds and thousands of people on a daily basis. There's people that want to take advantage of those money spigots, and they're willing to do so, even if it means destroying somebody's life. And so what I see happen often is that, let's say if you're a super religious man or you have a great family with great children, they'll probably try and catch you in some kind of a honeypot operation. And I always tell people when they're first getting elected to Congress, I was like, hey, you did not magically get more attractive or more funny. If you are at some random bar somewhere in the world and you have 3 10s walk up to you and they all 3 desperately want to take you home, I was like, I promise they met you there on purpose.
Did that happen to you?
You know what? I whether it did or didn't, I never took the bait. So, I never had to suffer the consequences.
As Henry Kissinger said, power is the ultimate aphrodisiac.
So remember, keep that in mind as we read more of this article, because I think it's very important to understand that. So the article goes on and says, Mr. Trump is now striking at the apparatus of the CIA's extra-constitutional power and influence, the election interference machinery that queers politics at home and abroad, and the drug cartel that furnishes the money to run the CIA's many black ops, finances the NGOs behind lawfare and gay communist street action, and probably underlies many a congressional fortune. That is why the Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier group is lurking offshore Venezuela. That is why Venezuela's airspace is shut down and why Nicolas Maduro is rumored to be fleeing to points unknown in his Gulfstream jet. While you were carving turkey, Mr. Trump was preparing to go medieval on Maduro's $1.5 trillion Cartel del Sol operation, of which the Mexican cartels are mere subalterns, shoveling drugs into the demoralized U.S. population, ruined by the campaign that moved productive industry to China and gainful employment with it. I mean, I think that's getting to the heart of what this is all about. And I think that if we do see a conflict there, I know a lot of people are saying, and I've heard this argument before, it's one of the many globalist banking cartel wars that they need to get never-ending conflicts. But here's where it's different. We're really striking at the heart of something that is a wholly owned operation of intelligence agencies here in the United States. The narco trafficking stuff, we've established over time, the major organizations have deep and direct ties to the U.S. government and its intelligence operators. I mean, that's just where it is. Like they said in the article, it's where they fund their black operations. It's how they offshore their criminal activities to avoid and obfuscate any sort of legal culpability in some cases and oversight in many cases. It's the same thing we saw with the Russiagate hoax, the Russia hoax with Trump. What was the FBI doing? The FBI was using the Five Eyes to conduct their dirty work. They were Crossfire Hurricane and Arctic Frost and all these other operations. They were basically going to the British intelligence agencies and saying, develop the dirt that we're going to use to frame this president and give it to us, or leak it to help us leak it to the media, right? So that's what we're seeing happening here. But it goes on. The article goes on. Mr. Trump hinted that U.S. forces are going into Caracas very soon, apparently to seize the Smartmatic servers, cartel drug ledgers, and other evidence of long-running turpitude. And you have to wonder how many someones out of Langley with names, titles, and offices will turn up in the mix. Mr. Ratcliffe must know who they are by now. Some of them have been at it since the cowboy days of Mena, Arkansas, back when Bill Clinton was governor, and the cocaine planes from Colombia were landing day after day on that little backwater strip. The cartels had to switch to boats lately, and we see how that's working out. It's not just that the Democratic Party mouthpieces object to Mr. Trump blowing them up. They'd rather see another 10,000 unemployed citizens die of fentanyl poisoning in Meigs County, Ohio. The Blob's errand boys and girls in Congress made their lame diversionary move on November 18th with the Seditious Six video, an attempt to stir up mutiny in the military ranks. It backfired badly. It looks like the Department of War is going to make an example of Senator Mark the Astronaut Kelly, because he was the only veteran among the 6 who served long enough to qualify for mandatory reenlistment and thus be subject to military justice outside the control of blob-run D.C. federal district judges like Jeb Boasberg. The seditious six organizers, Senator Alyssa Slotkin, an ex-CIA official, followed up on the mutiny video November 23rd during an interview with ABC's This Week show, saying she expected that National Guard troops might soon shoot U.S. citizens in stressful situations. Didn't work out that way. Rather, 3 days later, a former CIA-run Afghani refugee drove all the way across the country from Bellingham, Washington, to shoot two National Guard troops in the heads on a D.C. street the day before Thanksgiving. The CIA is supposed to track their assets. Who was tracking Ramanullah Lakwana? Maybe Alyssa Slotkin can ask her old colleagues back in Langley and report back to the public. So think about it. That's the diversion they've run. That was their move against Trump, and it failed. It obviously flopped, and it's floundering, and this is something we're seeing unfold. Again, here's the clip of Slotkin saying exactly that. Watch this.
Look at these videos coming out of places like Chicago. It makes me incredibly nervous that we're about to see people in law enforcement, people in uniform military get nervous, get stressed, shoot at American civilians. It is a very, very stressful situation for these law enforcement and for the communities on the ground. So it was basically a warning to say, like, if you're asked to do something, particularly against American citizens, look at these videos.
Yep. And don't forget who she is, Alyssa Slotkin. Used to work for the CIA, but now formerly trained at overthrowing governments. And now she's a Democrat in Congress. She knows that her speech could invoke a rebellion, and that's called sedition. But her voters are too stupid to understand or notice. This is what they're doing, okay? This is the operation that they're running, and it couldn't be more clear to anybody who's been paying attention, okay? But let's go back. I want to read some more of this article because it's really good. It's short. It's not very long, but it's very poignant and shows a lot of what we're dealing with here. It goes on. It says, if John Radcliffe has the names of CIA officers who have practiced color revolution against our country, he must have passed them on to DNI Tulsi Gabbard and in turn the president. Mr. Trump might consider treating them the same way that President Andrew Johnson treated the cabal behind the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. The 8 defendants, minus John Wilkes Booth, who was hunted down and shot in a Virginia barn, were tried by a 9-member military commission at the old D.C. Arsenal. 4 were hanged, 3 sentenced to life in prison, and 1 to 6 years. The CIA's color revolution against the nation, it's supposed to serve as much larger, farther flung, sinister conspiracy than the plot to murder Abraham Lincoln. There could be dozens, scores of CIA officials in Langley who know what has been going on there. Maybe JFK was right back in 1963 when he said we should splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it into the wind. That article sums it all up. And I think that's what we're facing here, folks. I really do. I think when you put the pieces together, it could not be more clear what is happening in Venezuela, what Trump's going after, because it's not just about the narco trafficking that's, funding these illegal black ops that are run out of the intelligence agencies, which are used to subvert the American republic, but it's the Smartmatic voting servers and the corrupt rigged elections and the Tren de Aragua and the Cartel del Sol, it's all of it. And how it ties into this deep state that we are obviously in a battle against, that Trump's obviously in a battle against. So this is why I think they're losing it too, because, look at what Mark Kelly's doing. He's lashing out now. He's responded to Pete Hegseth. So Pete Hegseth comes out and puts this a meme up here. Franklin targets narco terrorists. This posts over there, and it's funny, but not really. It's serious, but it's sort of a joke. Like, hey, this is what we're dealing with here, folks, and this is how we're going to deal with it. To which he responds by saying this. Listen to him here.
He's putting out on the internet turtles with rocket-propelled grenades. Have you seen this? This is the Secretary of Defense. This is not a serious person. He should have been fired after Signalgate.
Think about it. Why is he lashing out against this action? I don't think it has anything to do with him protecting the human rights of these narco-terrorists who are trafficking drugs, into the United States to kill U.S. citizens. I think it has everything to do with, again, protecting the operations of the CIA. This is how they get their funding. This is how people like Alyssa Slotkin and Mark Kelly, who are controlled assets of this intelligence agency, it seems, perhaps, just based on their actions, it would seem as though that this is why they're lashing out against it. So it's something to consider. And, it never ceases to amaze me how the war machine keeps pushing all of this onto us. And to everybody saying there's nothing happening, well, I think we'll wait and see. I think we'll give it some more time. Trump's got another 3 years, but things are going to keep happening. And I don't know how much of this will ever be public. How much of this the United States government could admit to without compromising national security and starting, global war? How much of this, if what we just went through in today's show is true, ask yourself this question. If we acknowledge it, our enemies will be able to use all of this against us in the court of public opinion globally. And if there were an endeavor to try to overthrow the United States and to take us down, you could build popular support and consensus among many nations to say, this is, look at what the United States has been doing. That's why all this has to be handled a certain way, carefully. That's the way I see it, at least. You tell me what you think down in the comments. But yeah, that's definitely the way I see it. And I hope you guys share with me what you think. All right, because I really want to know. Also, don't forget, before we wrap it up here, if you guys aren't subscribed, make sure you come here, click the subscribe button, and check the all so that you get all the notifications. Follow me over on X at JustInformed1. That helps out big time. But more overly, just please, support this channel, share these videos, get the word out. Go find me over on Rumble, rumble.com/JustInformedTalk. Subscribe over there. And I'm going to have more cool stuff coming up on the channel as we go forward. I've only been back at it for a month since my reinstatement. And since my 5-year sentence in the digital gulag, I finally got released on parole, and we'll see how that goes. But for those of you who don't know, my channel was banned for 5 years and in the wake of the 2020 election. And now it's finally been reinstated. So that's why I'm back here doing this. So we're going to keep the content coming. And make sure you support the sponsors. Make sure you support the people who help this show. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and leave it there. So today on our God's Grace is Greater segment, we're going to read out of Ephesians chapter 6. And I just want to share these words with you as we sign off about what the warfare we can fight on an individual level looks like. Because there are wars that are being fought that are outside of our control, but there is a war we can fight, and it's spiritual, and it starts with this. This is Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10. Going forward, it says, "Finally, be strengthened by the Lord and his vast strength. Put on the full armor of God so that you can stand against the tactics of the devil. For our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the world powers of this darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavens. This is why you must take up the full armor of God so that you may be able to resist the evil in the evil day, and having prepared everything to take your stand, stand therefore with truth like a belt around your waist, righteousness like armor on your chest, and your feet sandaled with readiness for the gospel of peace. In every situation, take the shield of faith, and with it, you will be able to extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is God's word. Pray at all times in the Spirit with every prayer and request, and stay alert in this with all perseverance and intercession for all the saints. Pray also for me, that the message may be given to me when I open my mouth, to make known with boldness the mystery of the gospel. For this I am an ambassador in chains. Pray that I might be bold enough in him to speak as I should." And remember, these words are being written when Paul is in prison. He is chained up, and he is writing these words about how to fight the spiritual warfare. So if we all feel, as it can feel at times, like we're shackled, like we're chained, like we're in prison, even if we aren't actually in a prison cell, but we feel like we're imprisoned to a system that we can't control. There is a battle that can be fought, a war that can be waged spiritually from within, and how that begins is by having these things that are outlined here in our heart ready to go, but also having a relationship with Jesus Christ. So if you haven't accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior, I make this invitation at the end of every episode. Open your heart, say a prayer, call upon his name, and accept him as your Lord and Savior. And that's where we're going to leave it. I want to thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Until then, I'm your host, Craig James. This is Just Informed Talk. Godspeed, and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots. I just want to take a minute to thank one of our sponsors, our friends over at godsfeedingstation.org. It's an online ministry, 100% free to use. And all you got to do is go to the website or download the app under the name God's Feeding Station today at whatever app store services your smartphone or device. And starting December 6th on their broadcast channel, you'll be able to explore prophecies of the coming Messiah. Then from December 15th, you can delve into the birth of Christ. So make sure you go check out godsfeedingstation.org or download the God's Feeding Station app today.